Hello, and welcome back to TechnoPoverty. I'm Henry.
I'm Jacob.
And today we're going to be playing MAXIMO. I guess we're getting a bit ahead here. TechnoPoverty is a show in which we play video games and tie them to related books in the genre. Through doing so, we just kind of bounce ideas around, explore, and talk to each other about video games, ideas, and, chill with the chat. Yeah, Our first episode was on Mega Man X and the works of Isaac Asimov and Philip K. Dick. We did not get that saved, so it is now a ethereal ghost. So, we're gonna dance with ghosts today and do some fantasy. As stated, MAXIMO, Ghost of Glory for the PS2. The big book I want to talk about while talking about this game. Sorry, I'm just making sure talent audio is coming through. I'm a bit paranoid. Is Lord Dunsany's In the Land of Time and Other Forgotten Tales. Mostly the Fotress Unvanquishable, save for Sacnoth. This is a swords and sorcery story from 1908 about an evil wizard who lives in a comet that comes around every 130 years and just gives people nightmares so terrible they can't sleep. And the people don't know what to do. They have to figure out how to beat this wizard, and it's extremely video gamey, but it's written in 1908.
That's
it's
impressive.
Weird. It feels like a Castlevania or a Dark Souls or a Zelda or a Ghosts and Goblins, which is what MAXIMO's in the vein of.
Or our man Lord Dunsany.
Dunsany, yes, Dunsany. Before we get too far into that, though, I do want to give a shout out to our first patron, Robert, or 32563256, as I believe he's called on Twitch. They are our first patron. We're trying to build a little bit of a community here on TechnoPoverty to do things besides books and gaming, such as a theater for talking more on the film side of things, and maybe do some things in private to get around what we can't do on Twitch, can't do on YouTube. But even if you don't want to, jump in on our Discord and see the secret movies and all that kind of stuff, just give us a like here on Twitch, give us a follow. We're everywhere. Our link tree's up there.
Really easy to find us.
Yeah, without further ado, let me go through a few other things we're going to be talking about today. So, in our last episode, we talked a bit about Asimov. We're going to be talking about Philip K. Dick again today. Today's a fantasy episode, but Philip K. Dick very much did believe in ghosts, and we're going to look into what that means and kind of how much closer science fiction and fantasy are than they may be kind of stereotyped as being. We're also going to look at the works of Gene Wolfe. This is Sword and Citadel. It is the back half of the Book of the New Sun. Book of the New Sun came out in the 80s, I believe, and Gene Wolfe was writing a lot on... he has a character named Severian, who's pretty much a sort of gooner-minded gamer protagonist boy. Gene Wolfe wrote this character as kind of a reaction to the rise in fandom culture he was seeing at cons and stuff in the late 70s and 80s, especially in the wake of Star Wars.
That cover art's wild if that's so.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get that a little close to the camera, maybe let the light bask in it a bit.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
Also thick.
Yeah, this is half of that's actually
half?
So that's two smaller books. It's a 4-book series. It's kind of actually right here on the table I have Lord of the Rings. We aren't going to be discussing Lord of the Rings specifically, but this is to remind me to bring up Tolkien's On Fairy Tale, which is an essay he did on fantasy. I shared this on the social media before the episode. It is a nonfiction essay where it's just Tolkien talking about why he loves fantasy. Nice. It's pretty good stuff. It's a bit long, though. And just a heads up, I share this stuff on social media. You don't need to read it all before the show. It's mostly for your own further exploration. I'm only kind of pointing you the right way, or a way I think is kind of cool to think about these things. Play with intertext and ideas.
Sorry, really funny. I'm just noticing that chat will censor the swears and censored thick from 3256. But on screen, you can clearly see what was said, so I'm really glad. But I'm very confused as to why thick was censored.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I see that there as well. We're gonna learn the rules as we do this. This is only episode 2. Before we get to the game proper, I guess really quick, we did lose the Mega Man X Asimov episode, and a lot of it is lost to time. I'm not going to try to recapture the jokes or like try to just like ham-fistedly punch in like, I don't know, references or too much of a, to say what happened in the lost episode. But I do want to bring up that the basics of it are that we talked about Asimov's 3 laws of robotics, which he presented in iRobot. He has a bunch of short stories featuring robots in which they must obey 3 laws. 1, a robot must never kill a human being. 2, a robot must always obey a human being unless it conflicts with the first law. 3, a robot cannot harm itself unless that somehow conflicts with the first 2 laws. Through these 3 laws, Asimov has a series of short stories that entertain how you can have this perfect, airtight, logical system, but by having it exist in a material reality where things are messy and imperfect, you're going to get problems. In a creative way, the laws prevent the stories from becoming horror stories where robots bad, people good. It's always a bit more about reasoning out what's going on with the machine. Or figuring out how there may be a ghost in the machine. We'll get a bit more into that with Philip K. Dick here. But I just wanted to bring that up because a key tension there is, again, the logical technological systems coming into friction with meat space. That's also a bit of what TechnoPoverty aims to do, which is why there's 2 of us here on the couch to talk and chat with you. Yeah. It's not just about the video games. It's about what the video games make you think, feel, want to tell people, want to share with people.
It's a conversation.
You see this PS2 case, it's a found media object. There's a history and a nostalgia it summons, and it reminds you of friends. Or, I talk with Jakob all the time about things we always mean to do, or things we've done or shared in the past. Art and artifact. There's the context within and the context without. But overall, we just really want to be about, kind of that chill approach to gaming and hopefully provoking some ideas out there and inspiring you to read some stuff. I really, really, really hope people do read Dunsany. The Fotress Unvanquishable, say for Sacnoth, is a very short story. It reads like you're playing an arcade game. I can't give it high enough praise. Just find it, etc. Sorry, I'm getting lost in the look of MAXIMO here.
Yeah,
so how about, without further ado, I'm going to turn the console audio on for a moment so you can hear these little sound effects.
He's so cute looking too.
Or the console audio just won't be there. What's going on?
Meat space isn't meat spaces these days. Completely agree. This meat space dog. Come here, dog.
All right, y'all hear the spooky music? We're gonna go ahead and slide right on into. There we go. So the Fotress Unvanquishable, say for Sacnoth, came out in 1908. This game came out in 2001, and I believe at the time it was kind of the revival of the Ghosts and Goblins franchise. Speaking of goblins, go sub to Pixel Goblins if not already. Before I get too far down that path, let's just start the game and see what it's all about. Oh no, the load screen beat me. Or did I accidentally start the game? No, there we go.
Very adorable dog lure. I love it.
Look at that blue disc, this brand new DVD technology.
Oh my god. Incredible.
All right.
Sophia! Maximo! Achille, you told me Maximo...
Silence! That's enough, Achille! You little fool! I control your kingdom now.
Damn.
Control the
Oh no.
of the underworld.
Sophia!
Behold,
I feel there's only a partial audio channel piping in from the PS2 because there's no voice track I'm hearing. Chat, how are you feeling about the audio?
Oh, they hear it?
Not afraid of death.
There are worse things than death.
For instance, I hear the sound effects track, but I do not hear the voice track.
Oh, see, I hear the voice, but I don't hear the
What that is?
sound effect.
Achilles.
Oh, it may be splitting the audio across our headphones.
Spirits. He frees
Interesting.
spirits, and he
Make everything
raises
a mono.
my dead for his army.
What's in it for me?
So, I'll return you to the mortal world.
How can I trust you?
How can you not trust his face? Here.
Okay, I think what is happening then is that because we're using this splitter, we in some way are splitting the signal, the stereo signal between our headphones. We can probably do some mixer tinkering if Jakob wants to mess with that in a little here.
So, is there a way we can move, swap these guys, and then I can do that?
I can just swap a spot with you.
Oh yeah, let's do that actually. Move the monitor too so that I can see it a little easier.
All right, so here we are, level one, grave danger. So Maximo's friend Achille is now the evil king. Maximo was out adventuring or on the Crusades, which, you know, shout out to the Seventh Seal. If you've never seen or heard of the Seventh Seal, we'll talk about it as we progress through the game. It's kind of a foundational art house movie in a lot of ways. Oh, EB Games, RIP.
Oof.
But while Maximo was out, his friend stabbed him in the back, took his woman, and as you can see, tried to disappear him.
Damn.
Shout outs to anyone currently under the duress of ICE who is disappearing plenty of people. Let's get Fabian Schmidt free. Let's get Mahmoud Khalil free.
Yeah.
Let's abolish ICE. You know.
Yeah, they're not doing anything
It's
for
only
anybody.
been around since 9/11. All right, now that I've gotten way too political instantly, let's go back to Ghosts and Goblins. As you see, you collect coins, you hop on rocks, and you don't think about anything in the real world.
Rocks are great.
Jakob, are you hearing the sound effects?
I'm not at the moment, but I do have my headphones on at the moment.
As you can see, I just hopped to the top of this rock and got a key. You collect keys to unlock parts of levels. Sorry, the opening rant about disappearances made me kind of get off track. But as you can see, Maximo is a platformer. It's an action game in the vein of something like Jak and Daxter or Ratchet and Clank. It's kind of Capcom's answer to Naughty Dog, I guess you could say, in 2001 when they were doing, Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy.
God,
Just has a very similar vibe as far as being a linear kind of platformer with it's wide, but it's linear as far as collectability goes. It's nothing like a Donkey Kong 64 or Banjo-Tooie where there's just too much stuff spread way too thin. It's still a pretty linear action game. You can actually see the DNA of something like The Last of Us in this. The Last of Us, I do enjoy as a game, and this dresses up this is the same skeleton. I'm going to say that right now. The PlayStation 2 generation was the generation where that formula really sharpened itself up. You had games like this, you had games like Jak and Daxter. Definitely look at like what Jak 2 and Jak 3 were doing as far as adding an open world kind of maturity to the games. There's kind of like a more grimdark sense of storytelling. I think, especially with the rise of The Walking Dead around the same time,
Oh yeah.
and just the general graphical capabilities of the PS3, you were coalescing into quote-unquote more serious kind of aesthetics in your platformers. But you're still scrounging around levels, you're still sniffing around. Think of the general kind of without the graphics, with everything stripped down, just your mouse in the box collecting resources. Here are the bricks, here are the screws. You're going to cash those things in down the line. Also, if you see me double jumping around, it is because this game hides treasure chests in the ground that just kind of pop out when you hop up on them, which is, I don't know how you're supposed to naturally intuit that, but that is a reference to Ghosts and Goblins, which had a similar mechanic. Ghosts and Goblins was an arcade game in the 80s that this is sort of in the lineage of.
Wait, so there's just random chests inside of the ground?
They're in fixed positions, so you can like re-explore the levels and come back and lick corners and, you know, do completionism stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, they're just in the ground. How's everyone in chat doing right now?
And they're doing pretty good. We're still talking a little about ice stuff. Germany and Britain issue travel warnings to MAXIMO land? Absolutely. They saw that MAXIMO had some bad ideas about a certain orange man, and it was very upsetting for them.
To further expand kind of on the whole realism thing, or The Last of Us having the same skin as this thing, let's talk about Tolkien's On Fairy Tales. There's a whole reason I brought that up, and that's because in that book he talks about fantasy being harder to sell. It's not real, so you have to get more descriptive. You have to make your prose really feel haptic in the mind of the reader. And video games are very good at just making things haptic, like you're reacting to them with buttons. This might be why like the Souls games and fantasy games in general are some of the most popular video games, because like, hey, it feels cool when you slay a dragon.
Yeah, that's true.
Something I do find interesting though is, MAXIMO may be seen as like a masculine sort of throwback to like fantasy, swords and sorcery, dudes rock kind of action fantasy 80s stuff. I mean, that's what Ghosts and Goblins was from. And Ghosts and Goblins itself also hinges, like MAXIMO, on your woman being kidnapped in part. You saw Sophia in the early scene there under the clutches of a keel. Something I find interesting, and I'm going to bring this up because it's something that's not in the Dunsany story, and not a heavy feature of something like Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit as well, is there's no damsel, there's no trophy lady. The heroes are doing stuff out of a broader kind of social, I guess, obligation or duty, which brings to mind, like the Odyssey. There's a whole part where I believe Penelope talks about a kingdom only being as rich as its poorest, and why you need to take care of beggars and the homeless, because that's, the suitors are just not sharing the wealth with everyone, and they're eating all the cattle and not replenishing things, and they're being mean, they're being bullies.
They would never.
Yeah. So, there's that wider social obligation, and as we get further into video games and the digitization of these narratives, you do kind of see these women as trophy things rise up that aren't in the traditional narratives. I even find it funny when King Arthur's brought up in that sense. Arthur is the other protagonist of the Ghosts and Goblins franchise, who's not MAXIMO.
Fucking Arthur.
I mean, Arthur's a cool guy. That's why everything falls apart, though, because, I don't know, my read on Arthurian legend has always been that you can have the best people in the best positions, but if the structures, if it demands blood, it demands blood. Like,
Oh, yeah.
you're gonna have to either execute your wife, or you gotta fight Lancelot. Like, the people are too, yeah.
Politics only goes so far. You actually have to, like, carry through with, like, what the system demands to.
Yeah.
Much like our bosses and all of your bosses.
Like, the Holy Grail is a falling apart of that order. It is when their politics detaches completely from the real, and they're just like, okay, well, religious artifact quest time, that'll give us new purpose. It's chaotic. Don Quixote is another good example. For how many old stories there are, allegedly, I mean, there were a lot. This is why Don Quixote was written. It was a response to this kind of stuff. But like Don Quixote, the Adventures of Simplicissimus. These are some of the first novels in their like respective like countries' languages, Spanish and German, I believe. Simplicissimus. And it's about how much chivalry and knighthood is actually a mess, or it's making fun of it in the same way somebody would make fun of like an Andrew Tate nowadays. Nowadays. Mm-hmm. What's the proper clementure there?
Oh, that I don't know. IManX1. Do you think Lord of the Rings fits Tolkien's criteria for a fairy story where escape, recovery, comfort, fantasy?
Like, is it like escapist?
I don't know. I didn't read a lot of Tolkien. I did watch the movies, and I don't know. They were good.
I do think the way Tolkien's using fantasy in Lord of the Rings is a bit critical of the escapist impulse. This is something I've always thought about hobbits.
Oh, with regard to thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm very bad about that. I was like, wit?
Okay, so this is something I like about hobbits in the books that I don't think really carries anywhere else in the franchise, is he is critical of like the sense that hobbits kept their head in the sand too long. I always read them as a bit of like a suburbanite metaphor, in that they are ignoring history, they're ignoring the worsening conditions around them, they're not answering the bigger kind of contextual call of history, which they do owe. A lot of Tolkien really clicked for me when I stopped thinking of his prose as boring. I started realizing a lot of like, when he goes on these historical rambles, he's kind of tying. He's showing there's a context of events that came before that it would be a shame to neglect in the present. I think this is why so many people kind of fall in love with Middle-earth too, is because he makes a case for why it should be like loved and preserved. That's also why a lot of other, clones don't do the same thing in their world building. They're just kind of like, well, this place is cool.
Yeah. Professor used Battle at Balls Deep as an example, darkest before the Gandalf showed up to save the way.
Oh man, I'm getting hit.
Balls Deep is great.
Oh,
he's just fucking bonking you right on the head.
Yeah, I'm coming back to get these fairies. So, I know it was botched on our end, the opening cutscene, as far as like clarity of what was going on. But so Akil tried to kill Maximo to disappear him, as we were saying, abolish ice. But Akil's using some like evil magic that the Grim Reaper does not like. Death is mad, and so Death makes a deal with Maximo. Hey, I'll bring you back if you stop the bad guy for me. And so I'm collecting fairies because you get these coins that you can pay Death to stay alive. And I always thought this was kind of a fun, mind-blowing thing as a little kid, where it's like this game's considering how to dramaturgically incorporate death. This is something video games would get really good at after this generation. Shout out to like Nier Automata, Dark Souls, of course. Breakdown was also kind of a trailblazer in that sense, as far as like the meta of like what dying means in the context of the story. But yeah, when you collect 50 fairies, you get a death coin. A death coin keeps you from gaming over. This all sounds like nonsense, but it is a very real and consequential economy to me, the player, which, again, video games kind of excel at that with fantasy.
Just taking out these little skeletons. In the end, like, where do they go after that?
Yeah, especially because, like, Death is giving me, carte blanche to just, like, run back these maps and break out this graveyard.
Fuck those little...
Yeah, there's scary hands. That's why I'm like double jumping.
Yeah, no thank you. I don't want any of that.
We're almost through the level.
Man, this will look great on the CRT.
It would. We do have plans to do some special stuff with older games on a CRT down the line.
It's true. We'll do it.
There is something to the look of that.
Oh yeah. Get these little guys. I know what they need. God, just
So as you can see, I'm picking up like little power-ups too, and those are things where if I die, I just drop them, so the game rewards you for just like keeping the streak going. I'm being very bad about using my shield right now, but it is a very useful option.
You're just big and brawny. You want to show your muscles off. I get it.
If I really wanted to show my muscles off, I'd take more hits, because this game carries over a fun mechanic from the original Ghosts and Goblins, which is your armor gets knocked off as you lose health.
Yeah. Did you just kill Casper's uncle?
Yeah, I slaughtered a ghost.
Okay. I just want to make sure I saw that correctly.
Ghosts are mean, they snatch your fairies, which fairies are some of the more rare of the currencies. It's amazing the kind of economy and language a game can get using, right? Again, haptic, direct, it's making this stuff consequential. That is a mark of good fantasy, and I'm going to say right now that Nazca in the Valley of the Wind and, A New Hope are 2 movies. Oh, The Matrix as well. 3 movies that are also excellent examples of this principle. You can have all the world building in your head, but you have to know how to present it with weight, intention, and drama. And the best stories know to only show you what is necessary as means of like consequence to the plot, and that makes it so much more dangerous and mysterious. And I don't know, those are the kind of hooks I really like in my fantasy storytelling, which is something I really like about Book of the New Sun. It's loaded with mystery. We'll get to that in a moment.